Hi, Matthias. Thanks for joining me. You're going to be presenting a workshop at our upcoming Data Governance and Master Data Management Conference Europe. So we'd love to kind of get more information on that. Can you give kind of our viewers a quick overview of who you are and what you do?
Exactly. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. So my name is Mathias Vercauteren. I'm from Belgium. So I'm the president and principal of a company called Data Vantage Consulting. So it's my own firm where I give consulting, advisory, educational data governance services, to big and small companies, helping them set up and implement data governance. I'm also a speaker. So I attended previously here in Washington, the data DGIQ, where I also spoke about data governance. And I'm also a bit of a writer. So I'm working on my first book in which I will cover my own methodology, which I will, be speaking about at the conference.
Great stuff. And so at the upcoming conference, you're going to be running a session which is about the attendees running and designing their own data governance workshops. In your experience, what's the most kind of significant difference between workshops and traditional meetings when it comes to data governance, and why do you believe workshops are kind of a bit more effective?
Yeah, so I'm in the data world now for 13 years now, more than a decade. And what I've noticed, especially in the beginning, is the only tool I have as a consultant in my backpack is have meetings with my clients to come up with the why of doing a data governance program, the definitions of roles and responsibilities, the definition of what does client mean. So you have these meetings, but what I noticed that a lot of the meetings I have is with a mix of people, introverts, extroverts. Sometimes these meetings are biased. You have endless debate cycles, so it takes weeks, months to get a decision, to solve a problem. And so that frustrated me, and so I started to look into solutions. And I ended up in more the design sprint and the design thinking, product design world. And then I noticed, the big benefits of conducting proper workshops and using that. Because what does a workshop do instead of a meeting? Within a workshop, you have the typical image of a workshop, post-its you put on a wall, is you visualize actually the conversation that's happening around the table, which already also solves an additional problem of a meeting. Because if you have a meeting, it takes an hour. People have a limited time span of giving attention to the conversation, and there are a lot of biases in place, like a primacy bias and a recency bias, which means that people at the end of a meeting, they tend to just memorize the first thing that happened and the last thing that happened, but they forget everything in between, which is of course a problem if you want to make important decisions about a strategic program like data governance. And so workshops or conducting a workshop takes away that bias by visualizing it. And there are also other techniques, to get the more introvert people, engaged in the conversation. And so I noticed by doing these workshops that I get much better decisions in a really shorter amount of time, which now I almost do not do any meetings anymore. I try to do workshops with my clients from the get-go. So
Great. No, that makes sense. I suppose it's about making that workshop kind of impactful and have meaning behind it. You've kind of alluded to it a little bit there, but can you give us kind of a sneak peek into what you consider the anatomy of a perfect data governance workshop is?
The anatomy in a nutshell, and I can elaborate on it, 2 days. But there are 4, building blocks. So first of all, there are some principles, some, the meta rules that are in place. Like I just said, you visualize the conversation that's happening. You also make sure that you sequence a discussion, because what happens in a meeting, often people start rambling on. So by doing workshop exercises, you properly sequencing those conversations. What's also a big difference with meetings is that you work together in a room, but you work on your own. So you work on your own post-it, which enables, like I said, the introvert people to also give their input to the conversation, which really is, an overcoming of that barrier. And one of the things I also take as a rule is that at the end of a workshop, we also have a decision, because what's the most frustrating thing is you end a meeting with no decisions and you need to organize another meeting. So that's one of the building foundations. It's these principles. Second, are more, the framework of a workshop. And very briefly, so what we do first is we collect the information that's needed to be collected. So what are the challenges? What are the solutions? So that's one thing. Then secondly, we make a decision. We narrow down the scope of, for example, the challenges we want to tackle, data challenges we want to tackle. Then we create some solutions or create some decisions or whatever, and then we commit on it. So we make that decision. So that's a bit the structure. So that's the second thing, the bit of the framework. Then you have, the mechanics. That's how you conduct that workshop. And there, like I said, it's the simple stereotypical workshop thing that's in place. So first you have the note taking, which is typical workshopy. It's post-it notes, yellow sticky notes. So everybody uses the same medium, so it's structured. We also emphasize how they should write it. So it's really a structured way of the note taking. Instead of in a meeting, you have somebody on their laptops, you somebody writing in a notebook. So you have different mediums, but in the workshop, we structure, the note taking. What we also do is we do a voting, something you do not do in a meeting, vote, but we do in a workshop, because we have everything visualized. It's easy to then with, sticky dots, to vote on concepts or ideas, challenges or solutions that you want to take it to the next step. So we do voting, and then finally we do time boxing. So we do exercises, but we time box them a bit tight, just to, keep the conversation going. And then finally, the fourth thing is the exercises yourself. So there are 1,000 exercises out there. So I use a couple of them that really are working very good in the data governance, data strategy kind of domain. And so the exercise. So you have the exercises, the mechanics, you have the framework, and then you have the principles. So that's, the anatomy of a workshop.
Great. And then obviously you've got your section of the workshop around facilitating and kind of managing all of that. And you talk about your 6 laws of master level facilitation. Can you kind of share kind of one of those and how it transforms the workshop?
Yeah. So there are indeed 6 laws. So laws of facilitation. So my role as a consultant or at my client, the CDO or whoever takes the role of facilitating workshops, one of the key things that I noticed is that the facilitator plays a really significant part in getting that workshop going and making it successful. And one of the key things, which I also learned by my own mistakes, is you as a facilitator, you should be more of a guide instead of being the hero. So in the past, as a consultant, I thought, I'm a consultant, I have the knowledge, people, hire me to bring in my external expertise, and I come in and I really say, a data steward, this is the DAMA definition of a data steward. These are the responsibilities that they should have. But what I noticed is, because I give my external advice and they kind of adapt it, it doesn't really, come from their own, ideas or their own culture. And so I thought, okay, let's reverse it around and let's make the client and make them, the participants, make them the hero. Let them come up with the definition. Let them come up with, the solution. And I just guide them. I guide them towards their own definition. And I noticed that by doing that, they're more engaged, and the data governance program in general gets better embedded within the company. And so that's one of the main laws that I use. Is I act as a facilitator. I'm more of a guide, guiding them through the exercises instead of being, the hero. They are the hero. So that's one of the main of the 6 laws.
Great stuff. And kind of managing all that and being a great facilitator, with anything, a lot of people suffer from kind of anxiety of, running these type of things. Do you have any tips for kind of handling this in the context of data governance?
So I have some, but the one that I also through experience always share is that whenever you conduct or facilitate a workshop, there's always something that will go wrong. And so the main thing to manage that anxiety is really to change your mindset and embrace and accept the fact that things will go wrong. You might be sick, you might have had a delay, there are technical issues. I also conduct workshops, on a virtually remote kind of way. So also there are troubles, with the software I use. And so by knowing that, by going in as, okay, there will go something wrong, that really, reduces my anxiety. And I also acknowledge my lack of specific knowledge of an industry, for example. So really acknowledging my flaws also gives the participants, a bit of the idea, humanize myself a bit, give me a bit of credit as well. And also that lowers a bit my anxiety when conducting workshops.
Great stuff. And you mentioned about things that can go wrong there. And I think one of the reasons people come to conferences like this is to learn from others' successes, but also the barriers that they had along the way. Do you have kind of any memorable real life kind of stories of challenges like that and how you overcame them?
Yeah, I have a few, but the one that really stood out was I was working on a very small data governance project in which the objective was, to create a data governance program, meaning, identifying the purpose, identifying some starting use cases that we can use, to build out the data governance program. But, to pinpoint that, I needed to get some people around the table, the CDO and some people who need to have the buy-in and the sponsorship. But that was very difficult because one of the key stakeholders didn't believe much in the data governance. They really wanted to make it very pragmatic, and they didn't want to get together, to pinpoint the vision, the challenges, possible solutions. So it took, set of meetings, which it did evolve. So I did a lot of change management, building awareness, but it didn't really stick with it or really get off the ground. So I said, okay, look, I only need 2 hours, 1 hour and a half of your time to do a workshop. And within that hour and a half, we will define a strategy, define, the data governance challenges we are encountering, and come up with some solutions, prioritize them so we can really take it to the next step. And so there was kind of a disbelief I could pull that off in 1 hour and a half, but I did. So I had 3 people coming together. We did the exercises in a fun way, played some music. They were really engaged in it because it was very hands-on, writing on a sticky note, sharing their own. There was somebody who was more introverted. Even that person shared their ideas. And at the end of that 1 hour and a half, we had a proper vision of what data governance could be for the company, how it aligned with the data objective. We identified 3 or 4 challenges, company-wide challenges with the data that they're currently having. And we identified almost 10 solutions that they wanted to implement in the upcoming months. So, and it really came out of them instead of me as a consultant, giving my expertise. And that really, was mind-blowing for them that within an hour and a half, we could reduce work of, which otherwise would take hours or days to come up with the same result. And it gave, tangible things to take it to the next level. So, and I have multiple of such examples.
Yeah, I won't ask you to give away everything just on this, but no, I think it's going to be a really good workshop. I think everybody has situations like this, and and anxieties and things they like to improve on when facilitating these workshops, or even some people starting doing these types of workshops entirely. So no, I think it's a really good session, and I look forward to seeing you and seeing how it goes.
Likewise, and again, thank you very much for having me, and looking forward to it.
Cheers, thank you.